some people, risking life and limb is part of everyday life.
Keep going! Keep going! Move!
Fear for me is an analytical thing. It's not an emotional thing.
If I got up every morning worrying that my job was dangerous, I don't think I'd do it anymore.
I know how close to get, I know when to back off, and that's what's kept me alive.
Being able to calculate the risk of a hazardous situation can mean the difference between life and death. And for some jobs, this danger just comes with the territory. Few of us face danger in our day-to-day work, but there are some occupations where putting your life on the line goes with the job. For 20 years, I was a professional racing driver. My Formula 1 career saw me compete at speeds of over 200 miles an hour. I've had approaching 100 crashes and many close calls. There is little room for error. Any mistake can be fatal. There's no doubt the racetrack is a hazardous place to work, but it's a controlled environment where measures are taken to minimize the risks. For those working in a war zone, the rules of the game constantly change.
These people were civilians trying to flee the fighting.
As a result, in 2002, 65 journalists and media staff were killed. Phil By has been filming in war zones for ITN since 1983. In this time, he's been in every major scene of conflict, including the most recent Iraq War.
I don't think that people understand what really happens in war. The last Gulf War was effectively a video game that people sat at home and enjoyed. What actually happens on the ground, and not just in Baghdad or Iraq, but everywhere, is that the horror of war is just unbelievable.
Phil has worked alongside many respected war correspondents, including the late Terry Lloyd, who died from friendly fire in the recent war in Iraq.
It's got to be one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. Even the army sort of hold back to positions of safety. We ask our cameramen, I mean, not to be reckless, but to do jobs which are simply dangerous.
In 1991, Phil captured one of the most iconic images of the Gulf War. He was the first to film Tomahawk cruise missiles as they flew over the streets of Baghdad. His footage made headlines around the world.
What sounded like a jet plane, very low overhead, went past. And I just took the camera off the tripod and ran, kept it rolling, and got outside. And no sooner did I get outside than yet another one of these things came past, and they were cruise missiles. We could see them quite clearly twisting as they went. It was quite chilling, actually. There they were in broad daylight, middle of the morning, whizzing along.
So far, 3 have flown over our heads, all heading for their targets, and I think there's some more coming in over here.
They were sensational pictures. The first time the world ever saw what a cruise missile, a smart missile, can do. That this thing shot down the street, past Phil By and Brent Sadler, and almost sort of stopped at the traffic lights before it turned right to head for its target. And it was the first time the world's seen those pictures, and that was thanks to Phil By.
It's not just on the front line that Phil has taken risks. In the build-up to the first Gulf War, he filmed Trevor McDonald's famous interview with Saddam Hussein. After an arduous journey to a highly secret location, he came face to face with the Iraqi dictator.
They asked us to line up, and Saddam came in. And that was a very strange experience.
You must be made to pay compensation for the damage that you've caused there.
Mrs. Thatcher says this.
It was like he had very cold eyes. He looked at you, and it was like looking at a shark, you know, that sort of dead look behind the eyes. And you also felt this man would have no compunction at all if we upset him about making sure that we didn't return that night. And so it was very intimidating in a way.
By far the most chilling moment of Phil's career came after the Gulf War, while filming the Balkan conflict in former Yugoslavia. On the 3rd of April 1992, as he and a TV news crew drove towards Belgrade, they were stopped on a quiet country road by 2 Bosnian soldiers. The group, which included the late Terry Lloyd, were forced to drive into a nearby barn.
We looked at each other and I think we all thought the worst. I couldn't think of a way out of it. I remember thinking, this isn't right, no, it's not now, it's not going to happen now. And I got out every bit of paperwork that we had, and you know, the gear lists and passports, and I was saying that somebody somewhere knew where we were. And then one of them fired his weapon.
I felt at that point that this is a firing squad, and I can remember looking around. There were sandbags around, and I was looking around to see if any of the sandbags were bloodstained, to think if this was their normal modus operandi and they'd done it before.
Then there was some discussion between them, and they very quickly robbed us of just superficial things, and they just left. And there was a pause, and we looked at each other, and we just got back into the vehicle, and we drove off towards Belgrade and didn't say a word for about half an hour. And then we looked at each other and just thought, my God, you know, how did we get out of that? We did. And went back to Belgrade and drank a lot.
In this era of 24-hour news channels, the job of a war cameraman is even more perilous than ever. In the recent Iraqi war, 6 cameramen died bringing us those amazing pictures from the front line.
Of course it's dangerous at times, but I think if I dwelt on that and thought I was actually going to put myself in harm's way time and time again, I wouldn't do it.
Celebrities and VIPs are also increasingly in the firing line. Terrorism and society's increasing obsession with public figures has seen personal protection become a necessity rather than a luxury.
As celebrity bodyguard, Jerry Judge found out on an assignment to Somalia with supermodel Iman Bowie.
I don't really think that anybody, other than myself, realised how dangerous.
In the past 2 decades, there's been a large increase in the public profile of many VIPs, celebrities and politicians.
With it has come real threats from kidnappers and stalkers, increasing the need for protection from trained bodyguards.
There's a lot of people think because what they see on TV, it's a joke. It's not, or it's easy. It's not. Temperament is very important, as in, I say to people, you use this before this and this before these, and that's very, very important.
Jerry Judge, a former boxer, has been in the personal security industry for over 20 years. He now protects some of the world's most famous celebrities. Jerry not only acts as their personal bodyguard, but provides protection in high-profile celebrity events, like film premieres. A typical occasion was the opening of Pierce Brosnan's new film, Evelyn, in January 2003. At the event, he deployed 10 bodyguards to protect the stars as they arrived.
I have in the past used my hands. I've had to, because of some of the situations we've got into. Is my job dangerous? Yes, it is. I'm very passionate about what I do. For the people that I work for, trust is an amazing thing for what we have to do in our job.
The job of a bodyguard is to protect their celebrity client, whatever the risk to their own life.
A bullet catcher, yeah, I guess that's what they have to do. That certainly it embodies the essence of what somebody who is personal security has to think about when they're taking the job on, is puts themselves in front of the person that they're looking after. And that could be a bullet, that can be a knife, that could be a fist, that could just be somebody waving an autograph book that is an unwanted situation. It's a split-second decision, do I put myself in the firing line? And ultimately that's what you have to do, that's what you're there and being expected to do.
I've had some situations in my life over the last 20 years where it has got dangerous. But you work for clients, and if they get to trust you, that is an amazing step. A, because they trust you that you don't discuss their private life with anybody. And that goes further. They know then you'll look after them to get them in and out of the hotel, out of the airport, to the film premiere, to the actual gig, where if they're a pop star, if they're a singer in a band, or the band itself. A lot of it is what we do today is done on trust. It's very, very difficult when you have someone who you don't know knock on your door at 1 o'clock in the morning that think what they're asking for is an autograph. Now, as a security person, you then have to make a decision. Is it genuine? And I will treat whether you're looking for an autograph or you've got a gun in your hand, I'll treat you with the same respect as I'll tell you to off.
Protecting the rich and famous as they go about their ordinary lives can be a deceptively risky occupation. When John Lennon was shot dead by an obsessive fan on a street outside his New York apartment, the event became a watershed for celebrity protection worldwide. But safeguarding the life of a VIP in the developing world has always been one of the most hazardous jobs a bodyguard can undertake, as Jerry found out.
In '92, I went to Somalia with Iman, David Bowie's wife, for a 10-day trip. She's making a documentary with the BBC to show, obviously, what was going on in her country and how bad it was and people were dying. And, I knew how bad it was because I'd obviously got in touch with some people that I know, and they told me how dangerous it was.
Travelling in a jeep with the Red Cross and a BBC film crew, Jerry's assignment was to get a man safely over land to the capital, Mogadishu. Several hours into the journey, they ran into trouble. Ahead of them, armed looters had hijacked a lorry at gunpoint. Sensing danger, Jerry instructed the driver to overtake as quickly as possible.
As they were literally going past, they started opening fire.
Keep going! Keep going! Move!
The trouble is, the driver we were with, he got out of the vehicle and ran off. The gentleman from the Red Cross had Iman. I said to him, get her on the seat, get her behind the seat, and we threw her on the floor between the two seats. And David had bought Iman a bulletproof vest, which I made him throw over her.
Jerry then took the only option open to him, control of the jeep.
Get him in the car! Get in the car! Keep her down!
She's okay, it's okay.
It's okay?
Yeah.
So,
they picked the driver up, and I have never wanted to kill a human being as much as I wanted to kill this man, because he endangered not himself, but something in the region of, we had like a crew with us of about 4 or 5, 6 people. He endangered everybody.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine.
At the first screening of the BBC film, her husband, the rock star David Bowie, thanked Jerry for saving a man's life.
I don't really think that anybody, other than myself, realised how dangerous. Because it's like someone today going into Iraq to do a documentary, and you come up against somebody who's got a gun in their hands, and they decide to start shooting at you. I think it was that point that David thought, this was a very, very serious situation to be in. The first time and the only time I actually made a tape of my last will and testimony was for the Somalian job. And I made it sort of on a tape recorder because I realised how dangerous it was going to be after talking to some friends.
Although Jerry's assignment in Somalia has been the most perilous of his career, the risks are always present.
If I got up every morning worrying that my job was dangerous, I don't think I'd do it anymore. So I intend to do it for... I suppose I intend to do it for as long as the clients want me.
still doing the old shenanigans.
I get a lot of pleasure when a client steps off a plane, and I'm with that client for the 2 days, 5 days, 6 weeks, wherever, and then I put that person back on the plane. And when I shake hands with that person and they take off, I've done my job. I love what I do.
In the aftermath of a major disaster, the effective deployment of emergency response units can mean the difference between life and death.
Specialist rescue teams trained to save people after natural disasters and terrorist attacks often place themselves in potentially dangerous situations. Rescue worker Doug has experienced more than most. In 1985, he formed the American International Rescue Team, a specialist organization that deals with major disasters. Since it was formed, Doug estimates they have saved 125,000 people.
I've worked at pretty much every major disaster type you can think of, except a nuclear explosion. I've been to war, I've been to revolution, I've been to bombings, landslides, mudslides, rock slides, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, building collapses, plane crashes, ship sinkings, toxic clouds, firestorms, you know, you pretty much name it, you know.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch
on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
Doug's expertise has taken him to disaster zones all over the world.
You know, fear has different faces, and fear for me is an analytical thing. It's not an emotional thing. The minute it becomes an emotional thing, then you better get out of there, because you're going to kill yourself and kill someone else too. I actually feel at home inside of collapsed buildings, because it's kind of like my world. I can live in there. Other people come in, they get killed, you know.
One of the team's greatest rescues took place in August 1999 when an earthquake struck in northwestern Turkey, killing 20,000 people. Although many survived the initial devastation, they were trapped under the collapsed buildings. One of these was a young girl, found under the wreckage of a house after 4 days by Doug's team. Doug moved the rubble to her side, one piece at a time, careful not to dislodge the debris above her.
How old? Huh? 11. Yeah, okay. Okay, does the doctor want to look now? Can you pull your
I had made the commitment that I was going to die with her if I didn't rescue her. The slab that you see sticking down over her face was actually the second floor above her. She had 9 floors above her of concrete. The first floor above her was 1/16 of an inch over her chest. And between that and the slabs above, there was a space of 1.5 feet. And all of that was being supported by the corner edge of a piece of plywood on its edge. It was like a blade of grass holding up a 5-ton truck.
When the earthquake hit, she was lying by her bed. This saved her life by creating a protective space around her as the house caved in. She couldn't move, but was able to communicate.
Okay. You're okay now.
After 3 painstaking hours, his team had created just enough space to ease a stretcher underneath her. Very carefully, they pulled the girl out of the gap.
Okay.
Her arm was broken and she had neck and back injuries, but none were life-threatening.
So it's extremely complicated. It was extremely dangerous. And she was a very sweet, wonderful, intelligent, courageous girl, and it was just absolutely wonderful to save her life.
All right. Hey! You can't imagine the amount of horror and dead bodies I've gone through in order to find that nice little girl.
In everyone's career, there comes a defining moment. For Doug, this came on September 11th, 2001, when terrorists flew 2 planes into New York's World Trade Center. 3,000 people died in a disaster that shook the world. Thousands of people managed to escape after the initial collision. Within an hour, the first tower began to collapse. It was soon followed by the second. The number of people trapped in the rubble was unknown, so Doug and the American rescue team were called in to search for survivors. The scale of the disaster dwarfed anything they had experienced before.
Immediately started looking for subterranean voids, which I knew would exist around the perimeters in the subterranean areas. I knew that there would be literally thousands of people alive in those voids.
After 2 days of relentless searching through millions of tons of rubble without success, the rescue services gained access to below, what became known as Ground Zero.
Here's building 893, World Trade Center in New York, going down to the parking garage. We're in quite deep.
Keep pounding. If you're trying to signal us, hit 3 large hits. Can't see what's above me up here. Shining
The operation had inherent hazards for Doug, who faced the threat of collapsing debris and sewage raining down on him.
Nasty. Below ground zero was another world. I would call it the darkest place on earth. I would call it the gateway to hell. It really made you feel that it was of another world, but of another world that was very sinister. Okay, this is in the Commuter's Cafe. So as you go around, well, there's TV, there's cash register, there's the bar, and thank the Lord, no dead bodies, so everybody in here got out. It was an inch of black soot over everything, and in everything. I mean, I looked at my face and it's like, you know, I had this black soot, this black stuff. It's so permeated everything of me that it coated each individual hair, and all you could see was like the pink of my tongue and the white of my eyes. What I didn't know is that it was so toxic and so poison and just filled my lungs.
The magnitude of the disaster had not only left no survivors after the first day, but it produced toxins that became a serious threat to the rescue workers' lives. Doug's health dramatically deteriorated in the aftermath of September 11th. To stay alive, he was prescribed 200 medicines a day.
Essentially, my main problem is that all my internal organs in my eyes are severely damaged from the fact that I have hundreds, if not thousands, of toxic metals and chemicals in my body. I burnt the lining of my lungs from 3 levels below ground zero. Also, I restricted airway syndrome, whereas for about a year it was like breathing through a straw. And also from the collapsed subways, I absorbed, I got 10 types of fungus in my lungs. For more than a year, I'd be out of breath just by eating my dinner. I couldn't walk more than 5 feet, without getting out of breath, and I'd be hyperventilating if I tried to go between 10 and 15, 20 feet.
Today, Doug's fight continues. It may take 5 years for the toxins to leave his body, but although he can no longer work at the level he could before, he has no regrets.
I always expected to die getting crushed to death inside of a collapsed building, because you can't do something that's impossible over and over and over and over and over again, without it finally biting your tail off, right? But, I thought it'd be in a third world country. I have no regrets whatsoever for anything I did. In fact, I would do it all over again without a second's hesitation. What I did was the right thing. And if God wants me to die doing the right thing, then I'll die. But that's the way I'm going to live. Period.
And you can see the size of it. It has been called over the past 24 hours a monster of a storm, over 600 miles in diameter. You want to compare that to a state? You can just...
There's one group of meteorologists and photographers who live for the perfect storm. They call themselves the storm chasers.
Being afraid is part of chasing. There are times when the hell's hitting the chase truck, or a lightning bolt hits nearby, or you see a tornado forming very close to you. My fear is very real, just like anyone else. I'm not immune to it.
Violent weather conditions around the globe have created a new breed of extreme enthusiasts, the storm chasers. Like motor racing, the attraction is thrilling, but it's a dangerous one.
In the last 50 years, tornadoes have killed more than 4,000 people in North America. Video footage captured by storm chasers is an important resource for scientists trying to understand the world's more unusual weather systems.
When I first started chasing, I really didn't see any future in it. I thought, great, this will be a hobby. I'll go out, spend a couple weeks in the spring out chasing tornadoes and shoot the lightning here in the desert. But the more I became involved in on the business end, I would shoot a photo and someone would say, wow, that's something I would use in a magazine or a book. I put the two and two together and realized there was something to be made here as far as a career goes.
Warren chases these storms in a specially designed vehicle, more of a rally than a racing car. It has to be strong enough to stand anything a tornado can throw at it.
Well, this is the Archangel Chase Unit. It's custom designed SUV, which is a sports utility vehicle, and it's designed for one thing, and that is getting me to a storm, allowing me to do it safely and to, at the same time, be able to shoot the footage that I need. Probably the most noticeable modification here is this roll cage. It's a racing type roll cage. It serves two functions. One is, obviously, if you were to roll the vehicle, it would protect you. But also, I think even more importantly, if you're under something, a wind or a tornado was to drop something, the fall, it would protect the passengers from an impact here on top.
It covers an area of 250,000 square miles.
You want to go right to the center of the low.
Which includes a region in America's Midwest known as Tornado
Just a little bit
Alley.
east.
On average, 770 twisters hit the states each year.
Yeah, it's a very large tornado. When I'm chasing, my goal or my purpose is to get as close as possible and to do it as safe as I can, as close as possible to just about any kind of storm phenomena, whether it's lightning or hail or tornadoes or hurricanes. I want to get as close as possible and get the most graphic images I can. Might have zero visibility up here too. I think we're right. Well, hopefully this building over here won't come apart on this. Jesus Christ, slow down, man. You got to stop. We're going to have an visibility. Go on beyond this debris here in case this building comes apart. No visibility. No visibility. Zero. You want to get back the other way? Go on up a little bit more as far as we can go. Yeah, we can get away from the building there. The greatest danger in storm chasing is not what most people think. Most people think the high risk of storm chasing are the tornadoes or lightning. Really, the driving, the transportation end of chasing is by far the most dangerous part of chasing, because you're driving across thousands of miles, driving through back roads and in some really bad conditions with wet roads, poor visibility. You have a lot of other people on the road. You have farm equipment on the road. You have other chasers on the road. So believe it or not, the biggest danger chasing is just getting to the storm. That can be sometimes the most challenging part.
Warren's big career break came after 6 months of storm chasing. Risking his life, he photographed a bolt of lightning as it struck a light pole. The picture appeared in magazines around the world.
Lightning is very terrifying. It doesn't matter if you're a storm chaser and you've seen it 1,000 times, or if you've never seen a lightning bolt in your life. Lightning is always frightening. There's no way to become immune from that. And when I shot the famous photograph of the lightning hitting the light pole, that scared me to death. I mean, the impact of the bolt, it's an instantaneous just explosion of sound and light all at once. You can smell, there's a certain kind of an odd ozone type smell in the air. This all happens within a fraction of a second. And the charge actually carried into the underpass. I could have easily been killed. I mean, it was raining at the time, and that charge could have easily carried either through the ground or through the air and killed me. And at the time, I didn't know that. And nowadays, when I look back and realize how fortunate I was to not only get the shot, but also survive.
Tornadoes can be even more dangerous. The most severe is an F5, which can produce wind speeds of up to 300 miles an hour, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake.
No cussing, please. To see an F5 tornado, I think that's what most chasers dream of. It's the big game. It's the big prize is at least once in your life to see an F5. And I was very fortunate the first tornado that I witnessed. This tornado was so big that it looked like a smoke cloud on the ground. It was well over a mile wide. So it didn't look, you don't associate something like that with the usual funnel, like the Wizard of Oz, the very classic funnel. This was just a giant monster hugging the ground, literally destroying everything in its path. Keep going, punch this baby. Let's get close to it and get some good shots.
A storm chaser knows he's got to take chances to get the best pictures.
I'd say about now.
I'd say about
good. Green grass, white
keep
foam.
going, keep going,
We're gonna
keep
miss
going,
it.
keep going. You're not gonna miss it.
It's going over.
Keep going. I would not call myself a thrill seeker. I would not call myself someone who has an adrenaline junkie. I do think I am someone who is pretty good at calculating risk management. There is a certain amount of calculation that goes on as far as how much risk is worth the shot. Being afraid is part of chasing. There are times when the hell's hitting the chase truck, or a lightning bolt hits nearby, or you see a tornado forming very close to you. My fear is very real, just like anyone else. I'm not immune to it.
We are southbound on Highway 27 in Kansas. Have a report of a tornado directly to the west of us. Dodge City radar reporting it. Tom, watch out for this guy. It's going around directly to
In
the west of us,
1996,
between us and the
Warren
tornado.
was in
We're
pursuit of a
trying to cut
tornado
in front of it.
when he drove into a severe hailstorm.
Unfortunately, a storm
This
appears
is
to have
often
become
associated
a
with
right
twisters
mover.
and has been known to kill.
At this time, do have small marble and peace sign.
Any type of hail hitting a vehicle is spooky, but when it gets to be baseball size, not only is it spooky, but it's also dangerous and quite destructive. And unless you've personally heard baseball size hail hitting a vehicle and the glass breaking and just the loud sound is almost deafening.
We just lost the front windshield. Tom, can you see?
It's just something you never forget, and something once it's happened to you, most chasers are somewhat hail shy, where they'll really be careful the next time they go near any storm and try to do anything they can to avoid it. Well, we made it through the hailstorm with 3 dents and a broken windshield. It was a close escape, and the reason I say that is because we found out later. We heard this on the scanner. We heard a law enforcement officer yelling and screaming over the scanner that he was hitting a large hail, and it wasn't until several days later that I heard that this officer in the same storm had hail that was hitting his truck or his patrol unit so bad he had to crawl into the back seat and cover himself. The glass was broken out and the roof was actually almost caved all the way in from this hail. So when I heard that story, I was like, man, we got out of there just in time.
Despite the aid of advanced weather satellites, storm chasing remains a risky business.
That is wild. Lightning, did you see that? Lightning in the funnel.
I think the only reason I've survived this long, a lot of it is luck. There's no doubt that I'm the luckiest son of a gun in the world when it comes to chasing, that I would never dream of doing now. I realized I was very, very lucky in a lot of situations to get through them. I know better now because I have the experience and the knowledge, and I know a little bit more about meteorology. But when I first started chasing, I look back and realize I'm very, very fortunate to be around.
There is one predator feared more than any other on our planet, the shark. In 2002 alone, there was more than 60 attacks worldwide.
These attacks do little to bolster the shark's much maligned image. They're increasingly under threat from overfishing.
Our main study site is a place in the Coral Sea called Osprey Reef, and we go out to Osprey regularly, and we have a large population of sharks that we've been studying there for the last 6 years.
Richard Fitzpatrick has dedicated his life to researching and protecting these animals, and this means sometimes taking risks.
4158 5A047A.
One of the more hazardous aspects of Richard's work with sharks involves tagging them with microchips. By doing this, he can monitor their movements and have a better understanding of how these sharks live in the ocean.
Sharks are an apex predator. They're at the top of the food chain. They are the kings of the sea. You know, they control everything, all the food chains down below them, and they play this role, and it's a very important role. Sharks are essential. We need them, and they have to be used in a sustainable way. You know, they are in that position and that role for a reason. That's why they've been there for 400 million years, because they do the job as the apex predator so well.
Working with sharks is not always as risky as it looks. It's only when a stimulus like food is introduced that the aggressive side of the fish comes out. But there's one type that should be feared at all times.
Well, there's only one species of shark that I consider as a shark that would immediately look at you and go, you're a potential food source, and that's a great white shark. There are other large sharks like tiger sharks, for example, that have been known to attack humans as well. But the great white shark will immediately size you up if it's hungry, and it will say, you're not a seal, you're not a dolphin, but I know that you're edible.
Great whites are primarily found in the coastal waters of Australia, South Africa and America. Researchers take the potential threat posed by these sharks seriously, often working in a protective cage or capturing research footage from the safety of their own boat.
We're working on great white sharks, and my job was to film the white sharks as they came close to the boat. And to do that, I was hanging over the side of the boat with my camera on an extension pole, and it was actually all tied around my neck. And I remember using the little video monitor on my chest to see what was happening underwater. The great white was a 5-metre one, swam by and I let it swim out of frame. And while I was waiting for it to clear frame and get a bit of blue water shots at the end, the great white actually turned down, up and underneath, came at high speed and grabbed the video camera. I was watching this whole thing on the monitor, and so you're seeing blue water and then you see a lump come out from the bottom and thinking, what's that? And then the whole camera was engulfed. So I was watching the camera being swallowed by the great white. Because it was all tied around my neck, when the shark turned to swim off, it dragged me into the water with it. And so there I was in the water getting bashed around and slapped by the shark, you know, having glimpsed that image of going down the shark's mouth. But luckily, one of my co-workers, Ian Gordon, grabbed me by the foot and just hung on. The shark spat the camera out and back on board I came. So in one sense, it was like a virtual shark attack. And I must say, it really did shake me up quite a bit.
The ways in which a great white can kill its victims range from a single lethal bite to drowning its victim after knocking them unconscious. But even smaller sharks can attack in numbers if agitated or scared.
If we're diving with the sharks are very aware we're there. It may be the first time they've come across a big, ugly diver with lots of bubbles coming out, and you know, we're quite scary objects underwater and something that sharks have probably not seen before. So as a result, they do tend to get a bit nervous, and when they get nervous, they can lash out and attack sometimes as well. The biggest killer in all cases with sharks and in life, basically, is that fear and panic kills people. You have to maintain control. You can't allow your emotions to overtake your body. And if you do that, you're relatively safe.
Richard accidentally put this theory to the test.
We went down and we'd just set up the crate to start attracting sharks in, and I was doing a bit of film work, and I went high, way above the crate, probably about 10 metres above, and just filming around, and for some reason, we still don't know why, all the sharks just fired up, and I probably had about 15 grey reef sharks on me like that. They just came in, and it was pretty spooky because everywhere I looked, sharks were coming in. I was getting hit, I was getting slapped by them. I could feel one sort of trying to get on my calf, but I was spinning in the water, and luckily I had my camera, and I was spinning the camera around, smacking sharks in the head. After about 15, 20 seconds, it was all over. But to have the sharks fire off like that is quite a frightening event. Talking to a lot of people think, you know, you're just crazy with what you do, but that's the initial perceptions. For those people who've actually come along on trips and seen us in action, they know that, you know, I'm not out there trying to kill myself. You always have that chance of danger, but I wouldn't, you know, say I'm crazy and nuts. Just someone who's really passionate about sharks and the marine environment. After the great white incident, when the shark came up, I actually came back and proposed to my girlfriend and got married. I should have realised that sharks are not as dangerous as being married. But the best job in the world, you know, playing with sharks. It's something I've always been excited by, and to be able to make your living out of doing both shark research and filming, it's really cool.
Despite the use of digital technology, stuntmen still have an integral role to play in television and film. Many stunts still require them to take real risks.
You are creating an illusion of disaster, excitement, adrenaline, and of high levels of danger.
Few movies are made without the help of a stuntman. They push the boundaries of what can be achieved without serious injury to themselves or others.
I would say my specialist areas, if I have some, are high falls, fire and explosion jobs, and driving. You are creating an illusion of disaster, excitement, adrenaline, and of high levels of danger. So intrinsically, there is going to be some danger elements there.
Working in such a high-risk industry, safety precautions have to be exhaustive.
David works alongside a highly skilled stunt team to safely produce the desired action and effect.
Where's Mark? Oh, he's here. You checked the petrol? Yes. He's all right? Yes. Nice one.
Dave and his team put their stunts to the test in direct competition at competitive events. Going head-to-head in this environment allows them to push their stunts to the limit before they reach the big screen.
I would say that the ones with the highest potential danger have got to be the world record attempts. They are world records for reasons that they are technically very difficult.
In 2002, Dave was in Moscow for the International Stuntman Festival, representing the UK against teams from across Europe. He was there to break a world record with a death-defying car jump. The previous record was 234 feet. Dave's target was 250.
When I actually look at the footage, I get more concerned or more adrenaline than when I actually did the jump. Firstly, we had to achieve around about 90 mile an hour to the bottom of the ramp, and we really wanted to get off the ramp at about 85. We didn't have a road as a run-up, we had a footpath, which was pretty straight but not absolutely straight. At the base of the ramp, we had 9-inch clearance either side. So if you imagine travelling 80 mile an hour down a bumpy path with limited visibility, with only 9 inches of clearance, it's an awful lot to think about.
Once the car hit the water, he had just a few seconds to escape before it sank.
I did not find it very pleasant at all, being trapped in a car, upside down, in silt, having hit the water at about 90 miles an hour.
But Dave hit his target and broke the record. Fire stunts are one of the most dangerous on a film set. Meticulous planning is required to ensure the effect is safe. There's no room for error. Dave Judge attempts to take this discipline to a new level. In 2001, he attempted to break the world body burn record, a stunt often showcased in films.
It takes up to an hour to put the suit on, and so you are very uncomfortable, you're claustrophobic, your internal core temperature starting to build, you're sweating, you're struggling to breathe, and then somebody comes and sets fire to you. It's not a nice environment.
The time to beat was 2 minutes and 7 seconds.
Primarily, your main problem is breathing. I actually breathe through a tube which went down my leg, but that can only be used prior to and immediately after the burn itself. While everything's exploding and on fire around you, you really don't want to be breathing in air from the exterior. From there on, once things actually do catch and start burning, you are basically relying on the air that's in your lungs and a small amount that's contained on the inside of the helmet, which is probably 5 lungfuls. So this is why this 2-minute barrier is such a big deal. It's not by virtue of the temperature or anything like that, it's simply running out of air.
For this, he wore a prototype reusable suit. Colleagues kept him informed on the time through an earpiece. Although the record-breaking stunt started off well, he became short of air and felt very uncomfortable. Falling to the ground, he signaled to his colleagues to put the fire out.
As soon as you hit the deck and the safety team comes in with the fire extinguishers, it is by no means over. You don't really feel like you're out of this very unpleasant environment until the headgear's off. We can't take the headgear off until all of the consumables are taken off you. That is the actual wardrobe that's actually burning, because it's still potentially ridden with fuel. There are still potentially some hot spots, and on occasions we do get reignition.
Dave remained on fire for 2 minutes and 12 seconds, setting a new record. Successful record-breaking attempts like this are fed back into the film industry, producing safer and more spectacular stunts.
It's about control and technique, and sometimes it's not unusual to find yourself in a potentially very stressful environment. If I was to find myself in a job where I was extremely frightened, I would say I probably shouldn't be here. I'm being scared for a reason. Yes, sometimes you've just got to step back and spend some time adapting yourself to it, mentally preparing yourself for it. The job is both physically stressful, but definitely at times mentally stressful, and you do have to deal with that in certain ways.
Those who work in high-risk situations share certain qualities. The ability to make split-second decisions under tremendous pressure.
There is that element of kind of a adventurous, to heck with everything attitude that allows you to go out there and have fun when most people would be frightened to death.
I still don't like loud explosions. They make me jump. The only advantage I have is I'm sort of quite slow-witted, and I jump rather slower than most people, so the camera stays steady. Maybe that's why they've chosen me to do this.
You don't get to make a mistake. Halfway through a mistake, you're already dead. You never get past the beginning of a mistake. And death comes really fast.
Above all, they have to be fearless, when the rest would probably freeze.